The Flow Friday Night Sports Show continues on, and before we pack up and head out the door, we need to get the Flow Man back on the line for our Flow family in New South Wales and Victoria. Ellis Gelios, I reckon we've got him on the line.
We're privileged to grab some of his time because he's sounding very busy.
He is. Flow Man, you there?
It's great to join you both. Hi, Ellis. G'day, Jason. Yeah, pretty busy. Lisa and I out on the road. We actually caught up with Nikki Reynolds from the Land newspaper, Jason, one of your colleagues on the Country Viewpoint, and caught up with a coffee this morning in Wagga Wagga, and she sends her greetings and best to everyone at the Flow.
Excellent. She's a star, and there's plenty of stars that are about to hit the football field over there in New South Wales, Ellis, but huge competitions over there, mate.
Yeah, no question about it. And just mouth-watering fixtures for round one across all these competitions.
We're going to get back to that in a moment. But Flowman first, I listened into the morning show with great interest today, listening to you talk about some of the ridiculous COVID rules that we've got in line for Victorian clubs to try and negotiate. I mean, we didn't have football in Victoria last year, and they're making it awfully difficult for clubs to get the job done this year. What are they doing over there?
Yeah, both in Victoria and New South Wales, these are part of the COVID protocols that are set down by each state and then therefore transferred through each AFL governing body, in this case in New South Wales, the AFL Riverina. And when you talk about the country football in Victoria, there are AFL country football championships and also all sorts of places that we are going to be going with footy this year are going to have these new COVID rules. Now, they restrict the amount of people, and I think we talked last week, you and I, Jase, about 1,000 people in Victoria and 3,000 in New South Wales. But I thought the one this morning that I raised on what is a really important topic is for kids football and netball. And it's not so much the crowd sizes. You generally don't get 1,000 people out first thing in the morning for the kids' games, but all of the business of not being able to high-five each other or not being able to tap each other on the back and say, well done, mate. There's no touch type policy, and even the oranges, Jase, they can't serve a plate of oranges to the kids.
Come on. That's ridiculous. Who's coming up with this sort of stuff? Are this politicians or bureaucrats just putting their two bobs worth in where it's not needed?
Look, it is, and I think it's the context now must be looked at that if we've been promised that the vaccine is going to work and that we're going to be able to get things back to some sort of normality, and this is what governments have been telling us, both state and federal, then surely to goodness the kids who are at the lowest risk for any group of people of COVID-19 in terms of severe illness and so on, but surely the kids can play normal football. Surely the girls can run around in a netball skirt and to be able to enjoy the game and not have to go hand sanitising at each break, and the rules that have been put in place for coming through gates and so on and signing in. And I just think that we've moved to a new level of control that our kids don't need this control. This 12 months is enough for them. They need some normality in their lives. And if this is the way in which governments think that the kids are going to, handle mental health issues in the future, well, I'm going to say this straight out, that by not letting the kids run around, high-five each other like the AFL players do, hug a player when they've kicked an absolute beauty of a goal. I mean, Ellis Gelios in his great days on the soccer pitch, he did some of the biggest celebrations one has ever seen. Now, to say that Ellis would not be allowed to do that because of kids' soccer rules, I think it's a travesty.
Ridiculous. Yep, ran across the road, hugged a few neighbours, shirts off on the backyard, out in the backyard. I've seen some of your work, Ellis. You don't mind a celebration?
Little Ellis was only looking at the canteen back then, Flowman. But point taken. Should we talk about the actual football and turning our attention to the Gallagher's Farah League in the Riverina? Flowman, plenty of juicy fixtures to commence in round one. We've got the Murrah Bombers up against the Northern Jets, the Columbali Blues playing the Charles Sturt University outfit there. We've got the East Wagga Coorangel Hawks up against the TRYC Magpies. How's this all going to unfold in round one?
I love the way that you've gone for the Farah League first. It starts on the 10th of April, straight after Easter. some of the folk in New South Wales are chuckling away with your pronunciation. The Colliamberley Blues get Charlestown University. The Mara Bombers, the Northern Jets. Temora Kangaroos, the North Wagga Saints. And the East Wagga Karingal lineup. They get, what you said was, I thought, really well done, TRYC. It's the Rock Yarron Creek Magpies, Ellis.
The Rock Yarron Creek, yep. And what about the team with the bye, Flo, man? Come on.
Oh, the Barellan Two Blues. There's nothing like the Two Blues who...
They do realise the double blues is a thing, don't they?
Well, it's two blues in this part of the world, but double blues for the Sturt people. And, of course, I know over in that part of the world that you've got a great interview for the South Australian audience. But here in the Victorian New South Wales, a really good combination. Colliamberley, they're out there in the Riverina Irrigation District, which is south of Darlington Point. They travel a long way to play their football in at Wagga Wagga and across even into the northern part of Wagga Wagga. When you get further out to, say, Barellan and then out further to Mora, they are long distances that the Colliamberley Blues travel, but congratulations to them. Welcome back to footy in Farah in season 2021.
Yes, looking forward to it. And I believe, Flo Man, before I move on, Ellis has a question for you about something extremely important. So I'll throw it over to Ellis. Now, what is it that you wanted to ask the Flo Man?
Bit of a trivial one here. Just looking at the Hume Football Netball League, it's reminded me of something I've seen from down the in past years, Flo Man. I often see AFL logos regurgitated across country clubs. Now, this is unique to the Australian Rules Code. It's not something you see in the round ball or rugby codes at all. Is there any history behind that? Is there any sort of trivial reason as to why we see the likes of the Western Bulldogs, the Port Adelaide Power and the Adelaide Crows having their logos sort of spun back out in the Country Hume League, for instance?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Some clubs like to identify with, say, AFL or their VFL days of football and in South Australia and West Australia. So they would come up with a similar Guernsey or a jersey or, in these days, a terrific jumper. And they would follow suit with their idols, I suppose, back in the city where they were being following. Sometimes it actually came through from a great player who might have come from the country and went back there to the big smoke and played some footy at VFL level, then returns home and they get an affinity. Often it was a zone situation too. Sometimes a club would be zoned to that AFL or VFL or SANFL club. So there is a couple of beauties though. The Giants, also the Ram, Walbundary Waller Giants. Ellis, they've got a Giants outfit on, which mirrors the Greater Western Sydney club. And we see this too with Magpies. A lot of Magpies right across the country.
What about CDHBU? Come on, what's that acronym for all about?
CDHBU, I think we've got Kareem, Daysdale, Hopefield and Barudja. I think, or Barudja and Hopefield United. It is a famous club in the old Kareem district. They generally call them Kareem because the home deck is at Kareem, but there is a group of clubs. They took on the power motive when a couple of the teams there came together as two amalgamated sides from two previous amalgamations, and that was a really good initiative for them. Because down the road is the Oaklands and Urana amalgamation, and of course they became the Billabong Crows. And of course a bit of power in Crows rivalry in Hume football. Unfortunately, not in round one, though, Jase.
No, that's true. Quick look at the fixtures for round one in Hume football. We've got the Saints and Osborne, bit of a rivalry there. Brock Burham and Osborne, that should be a cracker, Flo, man.
Yeah, replay of the 2019 grand final. I was at that game when it was Osborne who, in the last quarter, ran away with it over Brock Burham. Brock Burham, of course, were the winners in 2018 when they had a magnificent win on that occasion against Jindera. The Bulldogs, as Ellis has just talked about. This is a really good start-up, but a match that's going to see Osborne, with all of their initiative of last year, playing Riverina football in the year off for Hume. Osborne are really primed, and look out, they are premiership bound. They've certainly got a good squad together. I've just been talking to a folk in Lockhart in the main street, and they were telling me that Osborne's going to be on this year.
Yeah, will be. Other fixtures in round one, and we're going to talk more about these in the future because it doesn't start until April the 10th. Colcan, Jindera, Henty, the Murray Magpies, Lockhart, CDHBU, the Billabong Crows and Holbrook, Rand, Walbundry, Waller Giants, and how long? And Flowman, that's where we will leave our look at football today. Of course, there is another competition there which we'll have a look at in the future as well, and it was the competition that the Osborne Tigers weren't Tigers in at all. They were the Ostriches last year.
Yeah, Riverina will catch up on them next time round. But a really positive mood here. I was in the main street of Wagga Wagga. They are absolutely excited about getting back to some normal football and netball, and we're going to be covering it here on the Flow on 88.7 in this part of the world, and right across Victoria on our frequencies 95.3 up in Hopeton and in the beautiful town of Oyen, and on 106.5 across the north central with Donald, Birchip, Witcherproof, Charlton, and folk covering off in that particular part of the world.
Good stuff, Flo, man. You drive nice and safe, please. Look after your lovely wife, Lisa, and we'll catch you back here in the studios again next week.
Will do, fellas.